everybody out there, welcome back to another episode of Lana Lives in China. I know I look really informal today. I'm actually about to hop on a flight to the United States. I'm going home for a little bit, so I am kind of dressed down because I'm about to be ready for a really long flight. I decided to do this informal video today because this thing has popped up on the internet called 996 ICU. So basically what's going on is that Chinese software developers have been talking about Chinese work culture through using this 996 ICU tag in Github. They've used Github because in China, a lot of the social media platforms are regulated, and if you start to post negative things about some of the big Chinese tech companies, people will start downvoting your posts or your posts will get deleted altogether. So Chinese software developers felt that because GitHub is hosted outside of China and that is a channel that's open, that has been left open because it has a lot of information about software developing that the Chinese government views as valuable for people to access, they feel that they can express themselves openly and freely without being silenced. So people have used this tag 996 ICU to convey the fact that in the Chinese tech industry, you work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. And they've also been saying that, their bosses pressure them to work harder and compete really hard, which is sometimes a good thing, but the way that it's done here is a little bit different than I think people understand in the US. People have also been talking about the fact that they've been asked to work extra even when they're really ill. Some people have landed in the actual intensive care unit, hence 996 ICU, because they've been working so many hours and they're overtired. People have died at work. I used to work in China's tech industry, so I have a little bit of background insight about this, and I wanted to use this time to talk about my experience a little bit and talk about whether what they're saying is true or false. I think that people are very used to hearing about unfair practices in the factory space in China, but in the tech space, people don't expect this stuff to be happening, but it is happening. People have also been calling out specific companies, in particular Tencent. People have also called out Didi and Baidu, and they've even started posting screenshots of Chinese labor law, basically saying that what these companies are doing is against Chinese labor law. So I will say that it's interesting that people are talking about this because the Chinese tech industry is viewed by people who aren't in it in China as being something that's like kind of flexible and fun because your hours are really flexible. Like you can come into work at 10 a.m. and you can get a cab home after 9. They often give you free lunch and a free snack in the middle of the day. But what people don't realize is that since the hours are so flexible, you're often accidentally or tricked into working overtime when you don't really realize it, and you're not often compensated for this overtime. One thing that tech companies do, which is really competitive, is that at the end of the year for Chunjie or Chinese New Year, they will often pay like 4 to 5 months salary depending on your performance for the year. So because of this, people often say like, okay, I'm working a lot of hours during the year, but I'm also getting paid this crazy bonus. But it makes it really hard to calculate how much money you're actually being paid because you're like, okay, I worked overtime all year, but then I got paid this bonus, this performance-based bonus, and the performance-based bonus is kind of based off of how much overtime you work, even though it's not said formally. So you're not really able to calculate how much you're making really per hour. Another thing that happens in China's tech industry is that the work environment is really competitive. Like you're really forced to compete rather than collaborate with your coworkers. Competition can be a good thing, but sometimes the way that it's done in China's tech industry is a little bit, it's not always great for progress. Like, sometimes you have to ask one of your coworkers to help you and collaborate on something with you, and they won't help you or collaborate unless their boss says that it's something that's important. So it's often hard to like do things that pursue creative projects that will help the whole company as a whole, because people are so focused on doing whatever directive the boss is telling them to do at the time. So it's really hard to like have some of that Facebook-like culture that everybody is striving for here in China, where you're working to your full creative capacity. Another thing that I would say about the Chinese tech industry is that, I think that it is kind of built in for people to burn out. Like, you are really only expected to work in it for a few years, especially if you're a woman. This is especially true if you're a woman. Like, here in China, there's often an expectation that women will kind of when they're in their early 30s, they'll have a child and then they won't work for a few years. And then after they don't work for a few years, they'll come back into the industry after they have a child and their child is like 5 years old. So that often affects the ability for some women to receive promotion or for some women to get ahead, because there's this built-in expectation that you will have a child. So sometimes there is a little bit of sexism in the Chinese tech industry. This wasn't always true with the company that I was working with. To be honest, the company that I was working with was pretty good. And I will say that, you know, people were pretty nice. The pay was really good. The labor practices were also pretty good. But I will say that I wasn't working in the China portion of this company. I was working in the overseas portion. So I would hear about the work culture in the Chinese portion of my company was a little bit different than the culture in the overseas version of my company that I was working in. So I often wonder if the good experience that I had a lot to do with the department that I was working in. Another thing that I will say is that the culture is even more difficult for software developers. If you're a software developer, you do any type of coding, you're under so much pressure to meet deadlines. You're worked almost all the time, all night long. It's actually funny, my friend told me that a lot of Chinese women prefer to date guys that work in the tech industry, particularly software developers, because they work so much, so it's hard for them to get caught cheating. So it's hard for them to like cheat, and then also they don't spend a lot of money because they're always at work, and you know, you get free lunch and dinner and snack during the day, so they're saving all this money and they're considered good people to pair with. But on the other hand, they work so much that it's really hard for them to like build a relationship. So I think that some women who have boyfriends that work in the tech industry are left feeling a little bit dissatisfied at the end of the day because their partners are always working and forced to meet these crazy deadlines and are always canceling dates on them. It's really difficult. My personal opinion is that I love China's tech industry. I think China's tech industry is really, really innovative. I think China's tech industry is full of really, really smart people, but I think that some of the rigid structures that exist in China's tech industry and this 996 culture that people, this 996 culture that people, you know, in the past were like, rah, rah, 996, it's the best thing ever. It shows that you're working hard. I think it actually works against the company as a whole. I think when workers are well rested, when workers are able to express themselves creatively, when workers are able to feel like they have enough time to contribute to overall projects, you know, the company moves forward a lot better. I think people rag on Facebook as a platform, but I think that Facebook's model as a company early on is really interesting and can really be learned from. Like, from what I understand about Facebook's model early on is that, yeah, people worked hard, people worked hard, but at the same time, people were given, you know, the means for creative expression. They were allowed to go to networking events. They were allowed opportunities to, you know, explore things a little bit more. And I think that China's work culture is not always, I think that workers in China's tech industry are often so busy that they don't and are not able to do the things that allow them to kind of, you know, meet what Facebook's culture was in the beginning. That's my experience in Chinese tech industry. If you're interested in working in China's tech industry and you're not from China and you want to come over here and work, I will say that it's worth trying. I will say that you'll meet a lot of really great people. You'll meet some really smart people. My God, like the company that I worked at, I felt like my coworkers were so smart and I loved being able to collaborate with really intelligent people. You will feel overworked, but you'll be compensated well for what you do. But yeah, it's definitely worth doing. It's just like, you know, sometimes I think people are left wondering at the end of the day, like these people who are posting on Github, I think they're left wondering at the end of the day, like, I'm making all this money, I'm making all this progress, I guess, but like, what is it all for if I can't enjoy my life, you know? And I think this is the question that a lot of millennials are asking themselves worldwide. Like, we're working harder and harder, we're working more hours than our parents did, we're working more days than our parents did, and we're not necessarily earning more than them in some cases. And I guess we're just left wondering, what is it all for? And I think that this is part of what 996 ICU is conveying. And if you want to explore more about it, there's a lot of articles online. I'll post some in my info section. And if you have any questions about like China's tech industry or working in China's tech industry, ask me in the comment section. I will reply to you about it. Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Lala Lives in China. I hope you like this informal video. I will be back with another video next week from the US. See you guys later. Bye. Oh yeah, also, I always forget to say this. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Do not forget to like and subscribe. Now I'll see you later. Bye.